Well, it looks like Mike Shildt's getting another shot.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Feel free to call me Sully. I am an Emmy-nominated television producer who's been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and I finished now 5 seasons as a host here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm looking forward to season number 6. And thanks so much for making us your first listen. If you listen to us every day, like some of you do, John Murphy Jr., I'm going to get to you in a second. Please put a hashtag of Everyday Sully. I want to see who's out there, who are my friends out there in the internet world. Hey, follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And hey, John Murphy Jr., I'm going to get right to you right now. You posted your answer to the trivia question on YouTube. I saw that. Thank you very much for the shout out. I'm going to get to something else you said in your little video there at the end of the show, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the announcement for the San Diego Padres. Brett Chancey from Locked On Astros, aka H-Town Wheelhouse, has some thoughts about the new managerial situation in Houston, and we're going to say goodbye to the last person to win the MVP and clinch the World Series in the same year, be the league MVP and clinch the World Series, at the same time. And we say goodbye to an all-star. The trivia question, when we were talking Brewers the other day with Chuck Freeman, we said, who is the only number one overall pick in the history of the Milwaukee Brewers? And the answer to that question was B.J. Surhoff. B.J. Surhoff was the number one pick, and the first time and to date only time the Milwaukee Brewers have had the number one overall pick. It's funny. The Brewers have had only one number one overall pick, Surhoff. They've only once made it to the World Series in 1982. They've never had a manager of the year. They've never had a league championship series MVP. Because when they went to the World Series in 1982, the ALCS Most Valuable Player, the American League then, the MVP was Fred Lynn. By the way, it was a fascinating draft. B.J. Surhoff had a wonderful career. He did. He was a good, solid player. All-star several times. You can't point to that and say that was a bust of a draft pick. The very next pick was Will Clark, who was a very good player, beloved San Francisco Giant, MVP candidate several years. Bobby Witt was the third overall, who had a terrific career. He pitched many, many years. All-Star, World Series champion. The number 4 pick was Barry Larkin. Barry Larkin, Hall of Famer. Oh, yeah, the number 6 pick was Barry Bonds. Now, that's a pretty solid top 6. Surhoff, solid player. Clark, all-star. Witt, very good career. Larkin, Hall of Famer. Barry Bonds. Say what you want about him. He's one of the greatest players of all time. The number 5 pick that year went to the White Sox. They picked Kurt Brown. No offense to Kurt Brown, but Kurt Brown played as many games in the major leagues as I did. And when you had a draft full of Hall of Famers, all-time greats, legitimate all-stars, and yet, the White Sox could have drafted Barry Bonds. By the way, some of the other people involved in that draft were Rafael Palmeiro, who in any other universe would be a Hall of Famer. Greg Jeffries, who while was not the superstar of the Mets, he thought he was going to be, was still a solid player. Walt Weiss, who had a very good career. Joe McGrain, Brian McRae, a lot of people there who probably could have helped the White Sox in the long run. But, good job there, John Murphy Jr. in getting that correct. Another good job goes to the San Diego Padres, who had a managerial opening when Bob Melvin left to go to the San Francisco Giants. And the Padres found themselves with a managerial opening again. Now, for a long time, Bruce Bochy was the manager of the Padres. He was manager of the Padres from the mid-1990s until 2006. Bud Black took over, and they had some success under Bud Black. And then he was the manager from 2007 to 2015. So between I believe 1996 and 2015, the Padres had two managers. Since then, Bud Black was let go, and Dave Roberts was the interim manager for one day. Pat Murphy took over the team, and then you had what's his name, Chase Tingler. Was that who it was? I forgot. It sounded like a weird name. And after him was Bob Melvin. I mean, it's been a rotation of managers like crazy in San Diego. Melvin left, and that's right, Andy Green was in the middle of that too. So you had Andy Green, Tingler. I keep saying, was it Tingler? I can't remember. And then Melvin, and they're this opening now, and they brought in Mike Shildt, who was in the front office. This, to me, was an absolute no-brainer to bring him in. Someone already in the organization. I know they're probably going to trade Soto. They're probably not going to look as strong as they were on paper, but there'll still be a good team. They're still going to have Machado. They're still going to have Bogarts. They're still going to have players on their team. And I think they're still probably going to have a winning record. And Shildt let's not forget, he did a good job when he was the man. He took over from Mike Matheny, who I thought had overstayed his welcome in St. Louis. And when he took over the job in St. Louis, I mean, he did a great job. In 2018, they had a great finish to the season under Shildt. The next year, they were a 90-win team, and Shildt won Manager of the Year in 2019. They made the playoffs in the COVID year, and then they're having a mediocre 2021, and they went on a wild 17-game winning streak at the end of 2021, and then they fired him because he had philosophical differences with John Mozeliak. Well, now the Cardinals are a sunken ship, and I don't trust what they're doing this offseason. They keep bringing in veteran pitchers who let up tons of runs, and Shildt was manager in 2019, got the team into the playoffs with that wild winning streak. Remember, the Dodgers won the wild card game on a walk-off homer. It was in the cards, no pun intended. The Cardinals could have defeated the Dodgers. And Shildt was fired. I never understood it. And now the Padres, he was in their organization the last few years, put him right into the managerial spot. I think it's a no-brainer of a situation. So, congratulations to Mike Shildt. Hopefully it's the right move, and because I do want to see the Padres do well. And so, they've tried everything else. And oddly, the Padres have turned into one of those franchises where managers just get thrown around left and right. But hey, good luck to you, and we'll see if something happens. We're going to go from the Padres to a little Astros talk after this. Hey, look at as promised. That's H-Town Wheelhouse Brett Chancey himself of Locked On Astros. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good. It's been a slow off season, but we're excited because each day means we're closer to another season of Major League Baseball.
Well, right now we're in the middle of another season of the NFL, and this is the time to go to FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. I bet you didn't know that. That's 150 tomatoes if your team wins. And if you're thinking about joining FanDuel, I know you are, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use, even I could use it. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season as we're here in late November kicking it off. FanDuel, it's an official partner of who?
the NFL.
A seamless live read between my buddy Brett, H-Town Wheelhouse himself, and your pal Sully. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good. You know, I just went to the Texans game yesterday. Speaking of football, we've got CJ Stroud at the helm, and football is promising once again in Houston. Basketball is promising. So the offseason, despite the World Series loss, is not as grim and depressing as we anticipated it to be.
The World Series loss? Are you now doing Locked On Diamondbacks?
Well,
okay. Wait a second. I thought I had Millard Thomas. You look a lot like Brett Chancey. Sorry, I couldn't let it pass. I couldn't let it pass.
Not making it to the World Series.
Thank you.
Because of the World Series, World Series winning Rangers.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, wow, the league championship series in both leagues, you get whiplash. I mean, the first two games, it looked like the Phillies were going to sweep the Diamondbacks, and the minute Altuve hit that home run in Game 5, I just shook my head, going, "Well, you know what? You can't keep the Astros down for long." I give the Astros a lot of credit for the season that they had. I mean, every team has injuries, of course. Right. I mean, God's sakes, the freaking Rangers lost Jacob deGrom and essentially lost Max Scherzer. I mean, there was a human being whose body was technically belonged to Max Scherzer pitching, but that was not a superstar ace on the mound. And they managed to, I think they did okay. But, we saw the Rangers have, an up and down year, and we kind of saw the Astros being slow and steady wins the race in terms of the division. And I guess it's appropriate that two teams that finished with identical records would have a knockdown, drag-out fight for the league championship series. That just, I still can't believe. I mean, look, I'm not trying to rub salt in your wounds here. I'm not a classic Astros hater because I rooted for them in 2021 and 2022.
Right.
But I really can't believe they lost both of the games.
I can't. Sully, I was there in Game 5. I drove up to Arlington. Famously met Jose Abreu at Buc-ee's after the game. That was pretty awesome. And then I was at Game 7, and I was sitting one section away from Jose Altuve's family. I was sitting right behind Jose Cruz, my childhood hero.
Oh, wow.
Family, and next to Alex Centrone's family. And so I had all this Astros family near me watching the game. And it was more painful because I was watching them go through this, as family members. And, these baseball players are real people. But to see the Rangers turn it into like their ballpark, like it was a Rangers home game because Minute Maid is so intimate. It was definitely completely opposite. It was the exact antithesis of Game 6 of the 2022 World Series I experienced with my son.
Right.
So, but hey, tip your cap to the Rangers.
Yeah, you got to. And by the way, this is it's funny. You mentioned Jose Cruz. The image I have of Jose Cruz is him crying in the dugout when the Phillies won the 1980 National Championship Series. By the way, if you're a fan of baseball history, go to YouTube and watch the 1980 National Championship Series. I will say that is the greatest postseason series of all time. I think the greatest World Series I've ever seen was the 91. These are the ones that I've seen. Like I wasn't there for the 1925 World Series. I didn't see the Pirates beat the Senators. But I remember the 80 NLCS. I rewatched the entire series a few years ago, and it's the best postseason series I've ever seen in my life. The Braves Twins World Series is the best World Series, but you won't believe how dramatic. I mean, it was a bounce here or a bounce there, and the Astros win that series in 4. So, I mean, but I'll tell you something though. What you are experiencing right now, because that was a gut punch, dropping the final 2 games at home, having it basically turned into Arlington in Arlington South.
Yeah.
I had to picture the Texas geography for a second. But what you're experiencing right now is the effects of winning those 2 World Series, because imagine how painful that would have been if it was compounded with 80, 86, the Jim Edmonds home run, the Tony Eusebio grounder being stabbed by Walt Weiss. Right. There's no, Brad Lidge not so much lining up the homer to Pujols, but lining up the homer to Podsednik. All the things that built up. And I'm doing the laundry list of them, but all that gets wiped out once you win. So
exactly. No, yeah, it does. And we have experienced a lot of winning, 7 straight ALCS. You can't argue with that. But, I really think the Astros keep the train rolling because I like who they inserted in the manager spot because, with the exiting of Dusty Baker, you wondered if Jim Crane was going to go off the range and try to hire some big name, which I didn't think was out there. And I think they got it right.
Oh, they did completely got it right. I mean, they could have gone if they could have gone for this, we'll bring in Buck Showalter, or we'll bring in some big, huge name. The obvious choice was Joe Espada, and to keep the consistency of what's happening, he's been there forever, and he's been coveted as a manager. Look I want to take away any rumors. I am not involved in any front office discussion with the Houston Astros. And so I want to stop that rumor right now. But Joe Espada has been up for a ton of managerial jobs. And I have a feeling Houston ownership took him aside and said, look, Dusty is clearly not here for the long term. He was essentially there to put a cap on the controversy in 2020. Yes. They had to get someone in there that everybody, to deflect and to sort of be like, hey, it's a new day. It turned out to be astonishingly successful and cemented his Hall of Fame bid. But everybody knew he wasn't going to be their manager for 5, 6, 7 years.
Right.
And so he wins back-to-back pennants, wins another title, nearly makes it 3 straight trips to the World Series. And nearly was 4 trips to the World Series because 2000, the COVID year was Game 7. But he probably said to him, look, Dusty's not here forever. Just when he goes, this is without even saying it, just we'll take care of you.
To me, the connection he has with the players, he's been here since 18. He came over, he was with the Yankees, I think 15 to 17, came over here in 18. And really, he not only has a pulse of the clubhouse and the culture that Jim Crane has helped build with the players and personnel, but he has a connection with the Latino players. I mean, we have one of the deepest, I guess, systems that has the biggest connection with the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, to mention all those Latin American countries, even Mexico with Jose Urquidy. And so to have a guy that not only understands the culture, but has a respect for the players. Because if you ever watch any of their pregame footage that maybe some of the press guys put out, Espada's always out there position coaching. He's always out there coaching Jeremy Pena. And he is a guy that has the respect of the clubhouse. And if anybody's ever earned something, it's definitely Joe Espada. And when he came in to that press conference wearing his suit with his orange tie and his 2022 World Series ring, I mean, he looked like he was ready to go. He was there with his family. He credited his father and mother. He credited his family just for supporting him. And it's just a good baseball story. It's a guy that I think really keeps you in the forefront of the conversation of being one of the contenders next year, despite the many conversations that are going on what the Astros are going to do and who they're going to sign and are they going to go over the cap? Are they not? I mean, so Espada is the man. We've been calling for him for a while, and he gave Dusty Baker credit. He said, I sat under Dusty Baker and I learned a lot from him. And I give him a lot of credit for teaching me things. So that was a really good nod to Dusty Baker.
Yeah, and I think that I don't think the Astros are going to miss a beat. Now, obviously, we don't know. Whenever you have a veteran team, eventually things come to a halt. But they do have some younger pieces. They need to get a better year out of Pena. They need to have him be more of 2022 Pena than 2023 Pena. But talk a little bit about the Philadelphia re-signing Nola. How does that affect Valdez? Valdez is the most important pin that the Astros have because he has taken over the role of the ace of the team. Yeah. And he is a true ace and a vital cog for this Astros team if they want to get back to the league championship series as they have every single year this decade. He needs to be Valdez the Great. Tell me a little bit about it, because you and Eric talked about it on your show, what the Nola signing, what the domino effect that may have on Valdez.
Yeah, because of Nola's tenure, Nola's age, there's a lot of similarities, but you also have some of the similar performance issues in the playoffs where Nola is a great pitcher. He's had good performances in the playoffs, he's had bad performances. And Framber Valdez, the question was this last year, did the fact that Carlos Correa had been gone for more than a year, did the pitch clock come into effect? I think Valdez has the talent. Valdez is one of the best guys that can spin the ball, put the ball in the box, and people swing and miss. He's got swing and miss stuff, but it can't. Have we seen what Valdez is? Has he reached his ceiling? And my fear is if he's reached his ceiling and mentally, if they change the pitch clock again, if they keep like making it tighter and tighter window, is that going to make Valdez less effective? And if that does, maybe you offer him a contract, but I would not offer him 7 years. I would offer him at most 5 years, maybe same AAV, maybe a little less, but there is a risk there. So the question for the Astros is this: does Valdez, with his 2 years left of arbitration, hold more value in seeking trade pieces for major league ready people and maybe prospects, or does he had more value being your ace because Verlander's going to retire? It's just, what more are we going to get out of Valdez? That is my question. I love Framber Valdez. I love the psychological turnaround he had a season or two ago. But at the same time, I just wonder, have we maxed out what he's going to get to? Yeah. And look, if he has a bounce back year, then I'm wrong. We sign him. That's great. But there is a risk in signing him. I think there's maybe less of a risk looking to see what you could get for him if he has high value.
I have two pitchers that immediately come to mind. I remember, and I wrote it on my blog back when it happened in 2018. The second Chris Sale struck out Manny Machado, I said, thank you, Chris Sale. Put him on the trade block right now. You'll never get more for him. We all knew he was going to break down. Everyone knew Chris Sale was going to break down eventually. And so at that moment, his value was through the roof. And I also remember like how fast a pitcher can fall. I mean, Tim Lincecum was on the Hall of Fame track.
Oh, yeah.
He had won 2 Cy Young Awards. He made an argument for a third. And he pitched the Giants almost single-handedly to the World Series title in 2010. Yeah. And then by 2013, he was a spot starter middle reliever. And by 2014, he pitched one more game in the postseason than I did. And, like, if you hang on to players based upon sentiment,
right,
then the Red Sox have gotten a lot of flack over the years of not being sentimental, but they've until recently, a lot of times they were pretty good at recognizing when Pedro Martinez was done, when a Josh Beckett was done, when an Adrian Gonzalez was done, and it may have been harsh, but they always moved on. I don't know. It would be tough. You'd have to get back. You'd have to get back an unbelievable pile of prospects. So
here's the deal. In like 30 seconds, I can tell you what complicates this issue even more. We know Jose Altuve re-signing is like an unforeseen conclusion. The next question is Bregman and Tucker, what extensions? There's no way you can sign Altuve, Bregman, Tucker, and Valdez. If the Astros want to keep losing players and not pay them, you might as well send them to someone else for a big package instead of getting nothing for them. That's what I'm afraid they're going to do. We withstood the blow of Springer. We withstood the blow of Correa, but I don't think you can let a Valdez and a Tucker or a Bregman walk without getting something in return for them. If you're not going to sign them, you might as well start planning for the future that way. That's the conundrum I think they're in.
Well, we can't let you walk from the Locked On Podcast Network. So we gotta sign you. Where can they follow your show?
Look, man, go to Locked On Astros on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hey, we became the first 10,000 subscriber Major League channel in Locked On Sports Network. So thank y'all so much. That we have great followers, Sully. We have amazing followers, people from all walks of life come hang out with us. And Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast. Hey, we're free and easy to listen to. We're not selling solar panels or life insurance. What we have is free, and we'd love for you to join us.
By the way, speaking of YouTube, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right. Thanks so much, Brett Chancey from Locked On Astros there. Hey, by the way, check out Locked On Pirates because I did a whole show with Ethan Smith, and I'm going to play a part of that conversation we had on the episode on Friday. And tomorrow we have a really special episode as Vanessa Ivy Rose, who is the host of the podcast Reclaimed and the granddaughter of Hall of Famer Turkey Stearns, whose face is right over my shoulder right there. Why is the door open? I'll open up a little bit more. There's his whole face. By the way, rest in peace, Willie Hernandez. Willie Hernandez was the American League Cy Young Award winner and MVP in 1984. And he had a marvelous year as the bullpen closer for the team. I mean, some of the stats he put up there were absolutely, I mean, for a relief pitcher to throw 140 and a third innings. He struck out 112, walked only 36. And his ERA in that 140 and a third innings was 1.96. It was his first year, by the way, with the Tigers. He had played in the World Series the previous year with Philadelphia. Came over to there, was a solid relief pitcher who just had that super dominating year and was the glue of the bullpen of that Tigers team that went on a rampage right at the beginning of the year and never looked back and wound up winning the World Series. I mean, he had a couple of good years after that, but nothing quite the level that he had in '84. And he went by Willie Hernandez for most of his career. And then around 87 or 88, he decided to go to his full name, which is Guillermo Hernandez. But all the recognition was him as Willie Hernandez, and may rest in peace. If he had played today, I doubt he would have gotten the MVP or the Cy Young Award. The Cy Young probably would have gone to Dave Stieb, and the MVP would have gone to Cal Ripken. But they voted differently there, and he got it, and he had a wonderful year. By the way, John Murphy Jr. pointed that out in the video reaction, but you made a mistake. You made a mistake, John Murphy Jr. You said Willie Hernandez was the Cy Young Award winner and the MVP, and you said, and the World Series MVP. He wasn't. He threw the clinching pitch. However, the World Series MVP was Alan Trammell. I should have made that the trivia question, but I'm saving my powder for the trivia question because we have one for tomorrow's show, which is already in the can. So check that out. We're going to have Vanessa Ivy Rose talk a little bit about her fabulous podcast about the history of the Negro Leagues and her grandfather, Turkey Stearns. So thanks so much, Brett Chancey. Thanks so much, John Murphy Jr. and everyone else who are my everyday Sullys. And follow us at Locked On LB Pods on Twitter and on Instagram. And I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. Welcoming Joe Espada and Mike Shildt to their new managerial career and tipping our hats to the great Willie Hernandez. This has been Locked On MLB for the 22nd day of November, 2023. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Happy birthday, Lisa. And you can call me Sully.